TW, mentions of abuse and neglect, past traumas, etc. Mentions of spirituality, race, and gender. We're Riley Renewal, a 22-year-old plural from the United States. All of us on Team Renewal are Fictives, meaning we feel connected to the images of characters from fiction. For example, our first identified self is Tails the Fox, who you might know from the fictional series Sonic the Hedgehog. That doesn't mean he is exactly the same as the Tails you know. Fictives are often unique, even if in small ways, from their source material. Tails has been through a lot as Riley, and identifies with a mishmash of elements from his various canon backstories, so he's very much his own person. Now that you know a little about us, and about Fictives, I want to explain what this presentation is about. Today I would like to discuss the various challenges and wonders we have faced on our journey of plurality, and how we've come to terms with, and still are, to be honest, being fictive. First, though, a message to any Fictives listening. You are real, and you matter. If you have memories or feelings from other worlds, that matters. If you miss people from other worlds, that matters. If you find yourself/selves feeling alone and invalidated, we understand. Fictive is just a label, used to quickly identify our general experience. I can only personally speak for what we have experienced, but I nonetheless hope that other Fictives find use in our presentation, and that non-Fictives can understand us a little more. Also of note is that most systems we've talked to are not composed entirely of Fictives, usually it is only a fraction of members who identify as such. For us, however, this is our entire experience. We are all Fictives. I'm going to go through our life as Riley, starting from the beginning, how I began to identify as Tails. Part 1, our first self's origin. Before being known as Riley, our body's name was Emma. Right now we identify as non-binary, and are medically transitioning into a more gender-neutral form. However, as Emma, we were considered a girl. Thanks to our dad, a huge nerd, we absolutely loved playing video games, even very young. We encountered Sonic games and loved them, even before we could read. That's how I became acquainted with Tails. Somehow, the way he could fly in the air on his two tails, and his affinity for engineering, it all felt very familiar to me. It felt even more familiar to play as Tails in those games than to be in Emma's body. I thought, if I could be in the body of Tails, that maybe things would feel right. So I wished on every shooting star, 1111, and coin I could. One night, while looking up at the stars, this sudden realization came to me: I am Tails, but instead of in body, it's in my heart and mind. For some reason, this came to me as though it had always been true, as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. Part 2, our fictive systems formation and core beliefs. Despite identifying as Tails the Fox from that moment onwards, I also began to interact with and identify as other characters from fiction. Somehow I could identify whether or not these other characters were also myself. Essentially, that's how our system formed. We do have spiritual/past life beliefs about all this, and don't believe our system formed from trauma. Having PTSD and being plural are two different animals for us. The way they interact, compared to a singlet experiencing PTSD, is why we identify as endogenic despite having a DID diagnosis. Anyways, I hope Fictives in the audience feel validated by this presentation regardless of the origin of their multiplicity or just their fictive alter/alters. There has been a lot of heat recently on social media towards fictive heavy and endogenic systems, so I just want to say that we're all plural no matter how we feel we were born, and that different alters can have their own origin beliefs as well. Like I said, many fictive heavy systems seem to bear the brunt of this online ridicule in popular spaces. People will put Endos DNI, for do not interact in their bios, and bully fictive heavy systems by telling other users they are faking. It is not up to anyone but us to decide who we are. Please call out this malicious behavior when you see it, if it's safe to do so. But don't risk yourselves to appease those who cannot be reasoned with. Part 3, Living in an Alien Body and World. Now that that's out of the way, I'd like to share our next major personal struggle in regards to our fictive plurality. Namely, the struggle of adapting to a body that doesn't feel like your own. This is a struggle for nearly every plural we've met, but I'll explain how it can be different for us in ways. Many fictive alters in particular may take the form of non-human in our magical life, making it difficult to exist in a human body. For instance, just on a surface level, Tails the fox has fox-like ears on top of his head, unlike our human ears on the sides. When I am Tails, the skin on our scalp tends to twitch as though there were ears moving there. Sometimes they may even be painful, like aching wings for instance. It can be helpful to massage the applicable area on your human body, such as a shoulder blade massage for wing aches. You probably tense these areas without even realizing. But phantom limbs are not the only reason a fictive may feel uncomfortable in a human body. Many of us originate from 2D animated sources, and being three-dimensional can actually feel really strange. When we were younger, I absolutely hated all of the detail in this world. The pores in our skin, the veins in a leaf, multitudes of insects, etc. It's very different from the relatively simplistic worlds we feel we are from. However, over time, I was able to see the beauty and complexity. Anyways, I think the biggest issue we've had in getting comfortable in this body is just in terms of its humanness and vulnerability, something we still struggle with to this day. That sounds vague, so I'll give you the simplest and most drastic example I can. Because a self like Meta Knight doesn't normally use the bathroom, I could barely bring myself to do it for most of my life. That's right, we actively kept ourselves from using the bathroom because it embarrassed, confused, and intimidated most of us. Not to mention, for many years we didn't consider ourselves to be the same being in different forms. We all considered ourselves separate travelers who somehow ended up in the same body, and were determined to find out why. Since the walls between us were up so high, it was like using the bathroom in front of very famous strangers. As silly as that all sounds, it caused us a lot of unnecessary health problems on top of the abuse and neglect we already faced. It was very difficult to conduct ourselves in a manner that wasn't stiff and awkward, when we felt so alien to ourselves and each other. The only way around this was practicing being mindful with our outer body, and meditating on how we feel physically. Telling ourselves it's okay to be human. It helps to have a supportive outer world person who knows what your inner selves look like and struggle within the body. However, since secrecy tends to be a big part of all this, for many reasons, I recognize that usually isn't possible. So I'll tell you myself. It's okay to have these feelings, and you can simultaneously connect with your inner selves as well as the outside body. For example, I started feeling much more comfortable once I could better satisfy the outer needs of more human-like alters, i.e., transitioning. I'm not going to go into being trans right now, but I'll reiterate that doing what you can to make any alters feel more comfortable could end up benefiting you all. For example, Meta Knight now has a human form that he dons to do human activities with. Yes, again, sounds very silly, but it's been an essential part of helping him to be more comfortable in this alien body. To him, humans are the aliens. Part 4, A Heart in Multiple Worlds. Now, however, I'm going to tell you the most tragic part of being fictive. Put bluntly, all of our friends and family are gone. This tends to cause a lot of dissociation which can be difficult to explain to others. Really, what are we going to say in such moments? It's nice to have someone who understands, but it's almost too big to comprehend. To be fair, it is strange to have genuine feelings of grief over people who shouldn't exist. First, I'll say that it doesn't matter where such feelings come from if they are perceived to be real by the experiencer, they still need to be dealt with like any other emotional weight. Consider this as well, though, your emotions are proof of their impact, when they're not supposed to exist at all, and that's incredible. Having spiritual beliefs about life outside our current bodies can also help ease pain, just like a more mainstream religious belief might. That being said, there are two things you have to be careful of in regards to missing those from other worlds, the first being projection. It is very possible to find someone who reminds you of a past friend, lover, sibling, etc., and convincing yourselves they are the same. Even if the other person consents and agrees to this, from experience we can tell you, it's better to see the beauty of people right in front of you than to see them through the eyes of the past. Another way this grief can manifest is through daydreams. Personally, we hardly ever have nighttime dreams where we are ourselves, so we'll focus on consciously created ones. Maybe you've heard of maladaptive daydreaming, where simple daydreams begin to take up a lot of your time and energy, even becoming a true addiction. It is perfectly okay to help yourselves fall asleep by imagining being with someone you used to know. However, if you find yourselves using these daydreams to escape your current friends and family, it is maybe time to take a step back. Is something missing from your waking life, and can it be helped instead of ignored? Your feelings are valid, and it is certainly possible to live satisfyingly in this world without disregarding what you've lost to be here. Ignoring these feelings out of shame will only make things worse. Not all fictives have memories of other worlds. For us, personally, we have very few images, sounds, and smells that come to us. Our heart is where the memories are kept. Do not feel at all bad if you feel nothing towards others from your stories, either. That could change, but it doesn't have to. Part 5, Living in Two Worlds. It is totally valid to have inner/other world traumas, and we found these should be addressed like you would any current world traumas. It is also important, however, to be cognizant especially of singlets who have similar traumas. For example, even though many of us experience PTSD and physical/emotional flashbacks from war in our own worlds, we wouldn't walk up to a combat veteran in this world and mention it to them. I don't think we're there yet as a society to do that. It is what it is, and your identity isn't something you can just erase, as much as we've tried. It's okay to need therapy for otherworld traumas, though finding one who accepts you for you can be difficult. Alters can get mentally stuck in those traumas and become front stuck, maybe even co-consciously as to invade your other self's thoughts and feelings. Just like any other trauma, don't try to go it alone, but remember to also be discerning about who you share with. Part 6, Relax. Okay, here's another stupid one to lighten the mood. I'm gonna tell you right now, do not expect to achieve what your fictional selves have in other worlds with different rules. It's okay to be chill and take out the trash and get groceries or whatever. You don't have to act like you're the main character. You can be your own gender, sexuality, have your own favorite foods, films, and musical taste. You don't have to be the same as you are known to most in this world. For example, a lot of us are non-binary despite being cisgender in our canon. It can be distressing when your mind, body, and your spiritual age don't match up. But you can't change having to develop your brain. I just want to tell you, though, that despite identifying primarily with a 35-year-old Phoenix Wright, the Ace Attorney, in high school, we were not, and still aren't, qualified to be a lawyer. And that is okay. We were in high school, and now we're 22 and disabled. Who you are inside doesn't always match the way people see you through their own lens. Speaking of which... Part 7, Fictives and Racial Bias. We're mixed race and black. Almost all of us see our true inner selves the same way, despite all of us being canonically white or non-black. I'm not here to lecture you about racism, but I'm telling you that as a POC with a fictive self or selves, you're probably going to be depicted as white. You are free, however, to feel out your own narrative. If anyone's been listening to the J.K. Rowling rabble lately, death of the author has become a rather common subject. We ourselves, however, are not free of accidental exploitation. For example, one of ourselves is a version of the Japanese goddess Amaterasu. It would be very scummy and likely offensive to more than a few if we claim to be this world's Amaterasu, like how Fictives may recognize they are, at least, not this world's version of said person. However, I'm not going to tell you we are not Amaterasu to some capacity, because we can't change who we are. There may be times where this is uncomfortable, though, and that's a valid way to feel. Just try not to feel shamed out of being yourself, which, of course, is easier said than done. For instance, we also are Ludwig, or Germany, from the once popular anime Italia. That series covers Ludwig as head of the Axis powers during World War II, and despite there being a comedic tone, it's always been embarrassing and shameful to me, well, maybe because of the show's tone. But I can't honestly say I'm not Ludwig, even if our version of him is a bit different. Anyways, like what we said about inner/other world traumas. You can't walk up to someone of another nationality and claim to be the same when you aren't in this life. Unfortunately, as of right now, that is really just not how it works. Every nation and people has its own struggles, many of which can only truly be understood by living with them from an early age. Please respect the culture your other self originates from, but respect yourselves as well. In conclusion, all things considered, I want to reiterate perhaps one thing: plurality comes in so many different and beautiful forms, even within one individual's body, that in order for our community to flourish, I truly believe we have to stick together. Just like we ourselves began not even believing we were real, to not realizing we are the same person, to thinking maybe we were demonically possessed, to finding a plural community. We felt alienated as a plural before finding the Plural Association due to the scrutinies faced by fictive heavy systems. Not just that, but coming to terms with both the ID existing in the DSM and feeling like this is a deeply spiritual experience. At first we honestly spiraled into trying to uncover some hidden trauma from our life as Riley and Emma, and eventually became entrenched in conspiracies about ritual abuse survivors being given alter selves without them knowing. Perhaps this has happened to people, but I don't really believe it has happened to us, anymore. At least for us, the idea of plurality only ever being caused by trauma was a dangerous one. We gave ourselves more trauma by trying to search for what wasn't there. Labels are labels, fictive, traumagenic, headmate, system, etc. What we truly are, bottom line, is how we feel we are inside. We're here to tell you that you are real, and you matter. Our cat thinks so, too. I love that you're in this world with me, where once I thought I was the only one. We thought we were cursed, and cried every night to the stars, for many years. But you know what? Here we are now, participating in a conference for people like us. We're glad you're here! Thank you for sticking around, because as many empathetic and unique people there are in this world, the better a chance it stands to become a better one. Our road is not easy. Our road is not difficult. Our road is an impossible one, that which only we can travel, to places others can't yet comprehend. And that is how we feel every day, even if deep down inside, the impossible grief of everyone we've lost, of losing all the skills and battles we fought so hard for, of seeing through the lenses of so many at once. It makes our heads spin. We fight to be real, arguably more than any type of plural. But here we are. Living. Breathing. Alive. Thank you for believing in us. Because we have no choice but to try and believe in ourselves. It is our life's work. That is why we call ourselves Renewal. To us, that is what being fictive allows us to do. Whenever I awake to a new face, I am a little more myself again. Whenever we lose a face, we can pick up the pieces again. Watch an episode, read a chapter, play a level, hear a song. Who we are will return. Who you are will, too. That is, perhaps, our greatest gift as Fictives. If you are interested in watching our YouTube video about fictive plurality and copyright as well as others, please go to youtube.com/sanafishes101. Our Instagram is emma.rogers.renewal, where we often post about our experience as a plural in our art, and our cat. Also, thank you to Clockworks for inspiring us to make content about this stuff.